Hello and welcome back to Schellhammer TV. Now today's discussion is the first of three, looking at the potential global threats we are facing with the state of humanity and more. Everything we discuss can be found in Dr. Schellhammer's The 18 Biggest Global Threats to Humanity, and while we'll be touching on pressing topics, for more details you can find them all in this book. Dr. Schellhammer, you explain in your book that within the next 2 to 3 years, our population is going to reach about 8 billion people. You state that this is not sustainable and that we will be facing extreme criticalities. Can you explain more about this?
Yes, let's go back first 40 years. Yeah? Okay. 40 years ago, we had around 4 billion people. So in a period of from there to today, with these 4 billion people more, there is a lot of consequences into all directions. It's about humans on the one side, it is about production, it is about the way of living, it is about resources especially. Above that, we could ask about healthy food, for example, healthy water, and many more components that obviously has to be considered for 8 billion people. So there's a political issue, there is economic issues, religion issues, and especially education. Yeah. So with low education, 8 billion people, and a lot of resources destroyed, this will create a kind of dehumanization.
So let me be clear, with this discussion we're going to be looking at the impact of this growth in population relating to the human and their sense of being, rather than the statistics of, where are they going to be, where are they going to stay, the reasons for the growth as well, which we know is a lot to do with, improvement in health and education not being where it should be. You say it's to do with dehumanization. What does that mean?
Yeah, I said before, first of all, it is about humans. Although there is a statistic, there is immense amount of factors that explain risks and problems in the future. We already have today, by the way. But for me, much more important is it's about each single human. And as we know, it starts prenatal, postnatal, early childhood, adolescence, etc., etc. We can add then about work. Okay. So each human has a mind, a soul, mental functions, and needs education, a lot of education. So what is the general meaning of life for humans with 8 billion people? And we see they have no time to think about that. It's for 8 billion people, we have 6 billion people, they are always on a survival mode. And that question arises, obviously, what is the mental development, the spiritual development, peace development? How can these 8 billion people, or the additional 2 billion people in extra, develop their inner potentials? This is all ignored in statistics about growing of the world population. In the end, there must be a fulfillment for a human life. So 8 billion people, can they find human life with poverty, extreme poverty, for example? Not to talk about conditions such as war, possible wars, and etc., etc.
And I suppose the thing is as well, if we've got the majority of the population suffering in extreme poverty, like you say, it's about survival. So if they're on about survival, it's going to be putting shoes on their kids' feet, it's going to be putting food on the table. And if they're spending all their time working on that, obviously then not necessarily going to be growing or developing themselves, which is also going to have a knock-on effect of the mental health of the population as well. What is going to be happening when we look at the population in the sense of well-being?
Yeah, around us we have already, for example, contamination. Toxins in the air, toxins in the soil, ground, sea, rivers, everywhere. We have the plastic mess around the globe already. Then it's about healthcare that is impact. Everybody needs shoes and clothes and so on. 10 billion people will create immense waste and sewage. And soil pollution especially also. We have to know that I guess about 3-4 billion people, they are not connected with sewage systems or with sanitation systems. All this goes to the ground and we are destroying what we need for our life. So, and that should not be happening.
But what's the alternative?
First of all, the poverty is one of the biggest problems. There are certain grades of poverty. There's absolute poverty, there is extreme poverty, there is serious poverty, and there is poverty. Poverty around the world is okay. I don't see a problem there. But if people are just fighting for surviving, what is the meaning of all this? Who is responsible that we are in this mess? And certainly governors is highly responsible for all this. How to get out of poverty? Education. A lot of education, not only for those in Asia, Africa, Latin America, etc., but also for the Western world. A certain new understanding about ways of living on this planet is a challenge for everybody.
And I suppose getting that education to so many people is another challenge. There's a lot of people to be fed their education if there's over 8 billion.
Can I add shortly? So there is a price to pay with contamination. Who pays for it? For the contamination is one, all the resources. A lot of resources will be gone for 100,000 years. So who is responsible? Who pays the price? If we contaminate the entire planet, all oceans and everything is already highly contaminated. Who pays the price? We? No. Our kids in the future pay the price. And this is not correct. This is miserable. We cannot continue worldwide just thinking the following generation. They will somehow deal with the problems.
Come up with a new science to get rid of it. It's not a reality.
Yeah.
So from the year 2021 to 2055, say we have an additional 2 billion people, we're going to have increasing needs on, obviously, wants for those people. Can you tell us more about the implications of having so many more with such high demands?
If the high demands, if this can be satisfied in a balanced way for nature, for the planet, then yes, that could work. But I don't think this is possible. So the more people, the more food, the less quality. In the end, it's a fight, including possible war about resources. Who controls globally the resources? Obviously, the Western world wants to control all this, and what remains for the rest. So probably we will enter in a world with dictatorship, with, let's say, no privacy, limited movements. Somehow 8 billion people need to be administrated from the governments and controlled. So, and I don't think that governance is able to control this in a sustainable way. So from here we have problems, China, India, Africa, etc., many more countries with problems. They can survive, but the human factor, where are the human values then? They're gone in 30 years, totally gone. So, this could trigger, indeed, global problems for the next 1,000 years. So this is a human problem I want to focus on. What more can I say to that? the 4 billion people, how can they get out from poverty? They cannot.
And if there's more demand on all resources, like you say, food, energy, etc., that's going to push the price up, which means it's going to be even more of a challenge to get your basic needs met if you're having to somehow give more of your income or, fight for those materials. Yeah. So how do they get out of it? What hope is there for the 4 billion?
Yeah, let's start with the question, how is it in the Western world today? Education, for example. Education, they offer 20-30% of what people need. So the rest, they have to look themselves. Means for 6-8 billion people, we need much higher education to enable the people to deal with their challenges. Means up to 23 years, everybody needs to go to school, for example. There is no other perspective except dictatorship, total control, and slavery. So if we want to avoid this, so then we have to see there are, let's say, 8 billion people and 6 billion people we can manage, 4 billion people we can better manage. Then, only 2 billion people on the planet will have in the future, in 10-15 years already, I would say, will have a life like the Western world, Europe.
Equality.
The quality, yeah. The rest, they cannot get out. Another question is, will governments want that they get out? Yeah. So it's strongly a human problem. It is a problem of the meaning of our species. And if we answer this in a correct way, then we can operate with creating new balances globally. If not, we destroy so much that I would say we come close to a human-made Armageddon. We destroy all systems. And what then? What then for our kids? This should not be happen. And governance is unable to answer this problem.
And I suppose the knock-on effect is the meaning of life. If there's no quality, if there's only struggles, how is that, how are the people going to have any kind of quality of life or time to focus on inner development and pushing forward for a better way of living?
I can describe it even much worse. 2 years ago, the authorities around the globe, they said, end of the century, we will have 14 billion people on this planet, for example. 14 billion. 2 years ago, somehow they reduced to 12 billion people. So we have to talk about if this will happen, how will be our world, the world of our kids. A disaster, an unbelievable disaster. So this should not happen. And for this, to get out from the misery, to get out from the way of living from one day to the next day, work is a human value. Work, not having work is violence somehow. So, and it's about violence all around in 10 years already, if not already today. The average attitudes of the entire world population is an extreme increase of violence, mental violence, radicalism, all kinds. So, because people are lost, because people don't have a guidance from the governors. And obviously, I must say that religions, they do not have the correct answer to these problems. The core question is there hope? Or what do you think about that?
I don't know, before I think about whether there is hope or not, you obviously state that, and it's in your book, the future 50 years, 30 to 50 years ahead is going to be a complete misery, and you've just described some of the issues there. And obviously, lack of freedom and privacy are part of those. What else can we visualize for the future if this continued growth of population happens?
You mean for the better?
No, the outcome.
The outcome is a nightmare. We are already on the Titanic that, ahead.
Is it almost like a human Armageddon?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing from your book there. What do you mean by human Armageddon?
We destroy ourselves, all our potentials, mental potentials, spiritual potentials, creativity potentials. We destroy ourselves by lower quality of food, by lower quality of health services, by lower education. We destroy ourselves with the masses of people we can't feel well, in no way. So the meaning of human life gets totally lost. We have long series and a history of 3,000 years of human values. I have a list, I would say 95% of all human values, they're already gone since 20 years. Because people have no time to think about this. They run for food, they run for money, they run for surviving, they run for going for holiday, etc., etc. So we are responsible. The mess we have around the globe, this is a result of governance, of the economy, of religion, and of education. Something must change fundamentally to find hope.
Is there hope? Is there hope for the future? I mean, obviously the picture painted today is quite traumatic. Can we turn it around? Is there time for change and a better outcome, Dr. Schellhammer?
Let me draw a principle of life.
Okay.
Yeah? So imagine there is a lake. Yeah? Everybody throws rubbish and sewage into that lake. Nice lake for swimming, etc. Yeah? And in 10 years, the ecosystem is dead, the lake is dead, the water is dead, nothing, no fish, nothing comes out.
Well, we can see that happening already in many areas of the world.
We can see that throughout the globe, everywhere we can see that. So we destroy ourselves with ignorance, with absence of respect for the nature, and total absence of responsibility for our life and what we have around. So this is the first principle. Yeah? We must respect the principle of nature. Yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing is, if your house is burning, you run for.
Yeah.
Is anybody running for changing the planet? No. So 4 billion people, they were already in stress. 3 billion people were okay. So we also must see that if I see my biography and my father and grandfather, so let's say 100 years ago with 2 billion people, or a bit more. So this was balanced, but also a lot of wars for other reasons. So then with 4 billion people, the stress level was globally high already. And today it's boiling globally. So the unconscious collective world, I would say, is boiling today. How can we change that? I have a book with 500 pages. I work since 40 years to answer your question. Yes, there is. There is. A complete reset of the entire world is necessary, but not the way they say. No, absolutely not in that way. But I made endless calculations with psychology, with understanding of meaning of everything, with integrating all the humans. They must make the changes. But there is no leader around the globe. There is nobody that can lead the world population out of the mess of 6 billion people in extreme poverty, for example.
Well, it's difficult to manage that amount of people, I suppose, in one way, and that's probably where the difficulties come, the best way to manage it. Dr. Schellhammer, as well as the book we've mentioned today, The 18 Global Threats to Humanity, you have also written a smaller book, a couple of 100 pages, I think, or less, Solving Global Threats, 200 Ways to Save the Planet. Are the answers in that book?
Yes. Yes, there are answers, a lot of answers. So, more important is the principle. The principle is each human can change 5% every year something. 5% less of this, 5% less there, 2% here, a little bit less, and every year to continue to increase. So it is not that governance or the economy or wars can change the world. All individuals on the planet can, each one with little steps, make small changes.
And the book I just mentioned there, the Solving Global Threats, has all the information available for readers who may want to know how to change these 3%, 5% for collective improvement.
I give in that book this 200 ideas. Okay. And people can choose. This year I take out this. Next year, I give more attention for that. And I need to give more attention to my family. Or I reduce the use of car a bit. It's not necessary that 50% of etc. using this and that for leisure, for example.
And if everybody's doing that, hopefully in the near future, we would see an improvement.
Yes, there is a problem that makes it difficult. The problem is that I think that the level of mental functions of the people has degraded since 20 years, much degraded. So the more people have lower mental qualities, the more difficult it will be for them to understand what they have to do. They don't even understand what it is, what they have to do. So education again is the key. We need 3 times stronger education around the globe and in every corner of the world to make clear what is the problem, to make clear we have a meaning. Each human has an inner meaning, an inner call of life. I must focus on this inner center. And we need, 100,000 teachers that supports these learning processes. And this is not religion. No. Yeah? But this is about human values. This is about understanding what we are, what all humans are deeply inside. Seems to me that in the context of wars, that people, they don't like themselves. They don't like other people. So they go for war. They killed millions and millions and millions and billions during centuries and millenniums, and they don't like to be a human. Here is the change that must start for a new world.
Well, I think maybe one of those problems with that is we're so busy, being part of the rat race of life, working, kids, managing, surviving, especially for the majority who are on a lower income. They don't have time to stop and maybe look inwards and understand themselves, understand where the happiness can come from. And I suppose with a growing population, the demand's going to be so much higher, there's going to be even less time for that inner development, which is obviously an issue. Now, Dr. Schellhammer, you mentioned about mental functions. For viewers who are interested in that, we actually did 4 videos previously to now on human development. Video number 3 was very much focusing on the mental functions and Dr. Schellhammer's information on that. Everything is come with years of research and development from Dr. Schellhammer. So go onto our channel and you can find so much more on that and other topics too. So Dr. Schellhammer, we've almost concluded our discussion on world population growth and the fundamental implications. Do you have kind of a final statement to close this section or a nugget of advice to our viewers on what needs to happen?
Yeah. My answer is about education again. The lower the average of education, the higher the risk that 7 billion people destroy the rest of the world. So the Western world needs a much higher education about everything, and the rest of the world the same. Yeah. So it is indeed of highest importance that we get globally a new solidarity in educating every human up to 25 years.
And we're seeing that in some countries now where they're increasing the necessity for education, but you're saying this needs to continue and this needs to be worldwide.
Yes, worldwide and during the century. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.